Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. I stood in front of the wooden podium and looked around at the chairs circled around me. Ever since middle school speech class, I've hated speaking in public. My knees shook slightly as I looked at the dozen or so men sitting there, deeply afraid that my voice would tremble. I took a deep breath to calm myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Edward. After a brief introduction, I paused and exhaled again. I'm A. I purposely waited almost 20 seconds, watching the audience's reaction. Most people looked surprised by my opening statement, with expressions ranging from disbelief to bewilderment, but none showed scorn for the self-deprecating statement I was about to make. Well, I don't actually want to carry that label. It angers me to no end. This is my second conference, and I've heard 6 of you tell your respective stories, so I decided to share mine. Unlike most of you, I'm not divorced right now. My attorney recommended that I receive anger management counseling while preparing my divorce papers. So far, it seems to be working somewhat. At least I haven't killed anyone yet. The audience chimes in with smiles and light laughter. I never considered myself a gullible person until all this happened. I didn't realize I was so unobservant. I truly thought I was a loving husband and soon to be a proud father. I've never thought of myself as a victim or a failure. Although I was never the best at what I did, I was always at the top of the list. In high school, I was in the top third of my class. College was no different, and I graduated with a 3.4 GPA, good enough to get me into graduate school, where I once again did well. After graduation, I became an accountant, and as I gained experience, I landed a great job as a CPA and thought I was on the track to success. Then my life was suddenly turned upside down. Academic and financial success is one thing, but when the one thing that defines your core values is taken away, that's the worst thing a man can face. The blow of your wife telling you that you're not good enough, perhaps not directly in words, but in actions, is devastating. I began to show symptoms of hyperventilation and clung to the podium like a life raft in a storm. Sorry, I'm getting a little off topic. I reorganized my thoughts as the 2 men in the front row gave a thumbs up and nodded their understanding for me to continue. Let me back up and say, I'm not going to describe how beautiful my wife Sophia is, or how big her breasts are, or anything like that. And I wouldn't say our personal life is so hot that we make out every day. I just want to say that our life in bed is harmonious and our life under the bed is just as good. She's my best friend and my life partner. At least that's what I think. Sophia and I met in college during my last semester before my undergraduate degree. We fell in love at first sight and got married the following summer. I quickly found a good job as an accountant so that I could afford for her to finish school. After gaining a year of work experience, I went on to obtain my CPA designation and Sophia became a paralegal. She recently announced that she wants to go to law school. I scoffed, good luck to her. It won't be on my dime anyway. A few chuckles came from the audience. Since we both had student loans to pay off, we put off plans to have children and didn't even buy a house until we both felt financially able to afford it. Last year, after 5 years of marriage, we bought an old house and I completely renovated it. I tore the interior down to the bare bones and even changed the layout of the house to what we envisioned. My brother is a contractor who specializes in remodeling old houses, and I worked for him every summer while I was in school, so I feel like I have the ability to tear down and rebuild a house to make it look its best. My brother helped me when I started and got his subcontractors to give me special discounted rates, and of course, several of those contractors were already my accounting clients, so part of the work was mutually beneficial. In other words, I didn't put much money into the house itself, but if I sold it now, it would be worth 3 times the investment. Sophia got her dream home and looks happy and content. 6 months ago, she announced she was ready to have a baby, and 2 months later, she told me she was pregnant. I should have been ecstatic, and at first I was. But the thing is, this baby isn't mine. Or I'm pretty sure it's not mine, and at this point in time, I sincerely hope I'm right. I paused and continued, I don't know exactly how long my wife has been cheating on me, but looking back, I suspect it's been happening off and on for at least the past year. Of course, she had plenty of time to cheat because I was busy with my accounting job and renovating our future home in the evenings and on weekends. A few people in the audience nodded and I continued. Now I'm sure many of you are wondering how I found out about Sophia's behavior. I saw a few nods. No, unlike some of you, There were no late nights when you came home and immediately showered. No men's underwear found under the bed. Nothing. It all started with a simple phone call. I overheard her talking on the phone in the bedroom and thought I was alone. From her conversation with the other person, I surmised that she was talking to a woman about what to pack for an upcoming business trip. What caught my attention was when Sophia said, "You should bring that big toy of yours, but I might not be able to take it too rough anymore." She added, "Yeah, I know you said it's okay to play crazy for a couple of weeks before you go into labor, but it's my first child. And it's not like I've had two like you have already. And I'm not sure how much longer my body will be able to handle the toys you and Luck have." I know Luke is her boss's name. She continued and laughed. "Oh God, no, absolutely not. I'm not letting you touch me back there with that big toy. It's holding me up enough already." I had to do extra Kegel exercises so Edward wouldn't wonder why I got so loose after you ran out of that stuff. When I traveled for a week and had to endure that thing every night, I knew I was stretched. Last time I had to pull out my toys and perform in front of him so he wouldn't get suspicious. He thought I was just warming him up. Of course, I do Kegel exercises every day to keep it tight, and Luke is barely Edward's size, so it's nothing to worry about. But that toy is just too big. Of course I love it, gosh girl, but this pregnancy belly is really starting to show, and I'm going to have to start buying maternity clothes soon. No, I haven't gone for a checkup yet. I'm a little worried it might be Luke's baby. Yes, he and I have been together much more than Edward in the last 6 months, and the timing coincides with that New Orleans meeting. Plus, Edward was always home late then, too tired to make out like I wanted. I had to lay him down to enjoy it, and he never noticed. I saw a knowing smile across the room. Okay, I know some of you are thinking I'm making this up. There's no way I can remember a conversation in that much detail, especially if I'm pissed off. Well, I recorded this conversation on my cell phone, and I've listened to it dozens of times over the past few weeks. I enlisted the help of one of my brother's usual security guys, who set up a couple of cameras and recording devices and gave me some equipment I could put in her bag and briefcase. I caught her cheating on me a couple times in our bed while I was at work and recorded some interesting conversations. She and her boss and the female secretary were often together, sometimes two women together, sometimes the boss and one of the women. You have to wonder how they get the job done. The psychiatrist asked me if he wanted me to try to understand Sophia's motives for cheating. Maybe she was frustrated with our long separation and needed some physical and emotional comfort to make up for it. Well, I'll tell you the same thing I said to him. I don't care. She cheated, that's all. If she was feeling lonely or excited, she could have said something and asked for more of our time. But she didn't. She decided to cheat for reasons that are irrelevant. Okay, I'm almost done talking. Thanks for letting me vent. I am currently in the process of getting a divorce from the woman who cheated on me. She left again this morning for a meeting with some corporate client, and yes, the boss and secretary were there. As I stepped down from the podium, a stocky man said, "Why don't you go beat the crap out of that man?" Of course, I don't know who did it because I wasn't there and have a good alibi, but the guy who was messing around with my ex-wife had his jaw broken and his balls stomped on. Nobody saw anything, and the police said it was a random attack. There was laughter all around. I told them I hadn't questioned my soon-to-be ex-wife yet. I'm still on schedule. I got some incredulous looks. The main reason I come to these meetings is to control my anger. Oh, I can't tell you that I've thought about using a baseball bat and even thought about shooting Luke in the back a couple times, but I'm not going to risk going to jail. All that macho stuff about standing up for your woman like a man is bullshit. If she doesn't want to act like my woman, she's not my woman. 2 weeks later, I walked into the conference room a little late. Everyone else has taken their seats, and the therapist is trying to start the session by talking about how releasing inner demons with words is better than resorting to violence and risking criminal or civil consequences. I wasn't trying to make a grand entrance, but I sparked a cheer as soon as I walked into the room. "I'm glad you're back, Edward. I know these people want to hear the rest of the story," my therapist announced. "Okay," I said with a smile, showing a joy that didn't really exist inside, but I did feel content at the moment. I stepped up to the podium 2 weeks ago. I told you my sad story about how my wife cheated on me with her boss and may be pregnant with his child. Not only that, but the female secretary was also involved, and it was clear that the three of them would be together whenever they had the chance. Today, I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. When I last told you guys what I knew, I hadn't told that asshole's wife or the husband of another cheating woman anything. Not that they shouldn't know, but I don't want them to overreact and ruin my plans. I want to teach my wife a lesson that will last a lifetime, not the sexual kind, because she'll enjoy it. I waited until Thursday night of that week to tell the other two what our spouses did during their business trips. I apologized for the delay and explained why, then told them I intended to serve Sophia with divorce papers when they arrived at the airport on Sunday afternoon. I advised them to contact an attorney and gave them the name of my attorney. I begged them not to call or text their spouses to tell them they've been found out. After the initial shock subsided a bit, we started talking. I have found, as in my case, that everyone who cheats calls home every night to say how much they miss us and how much they wish they could come home. We all know these are a load of crap. At my urging, Luke's wife Emma decided to take the kids to Alexandria to see her sister and brother-in-law. She intends to confide in them and have them come back with her to question her husband. Apparently, this isn't the first time he's cheated on her, and she has two teenage kids to think about. Secretary Sarah's husband, Michael, couldn't take this weekend off from his job as head of maintenance at the Ford dealership in town. He promised not to call his wife. He said he tried to strangle her with no witnesses. I told him about the group and how it helped me curb the same urges. It caused a chuckle. Anyway, I told them both how I handled my finances and explained why. Take out half of your savings and checking account balances, etc. In my case, the amount wasn't much, but they both admitted to having sizable amounts in their accounts. I told them I wouldn't cancel my credit card until the last minute, but would pay the bill from the joint account and make sure my wife paid her half. I told them to think about what they needed to do and went home. I'm sure you've all heard about what I did at the house, and it's all true. I was cheered and applauded, and I bowed slightly. Yes, I spent a week dismantling my house. By disassembled, I mean I took it apart but didn't damage anything. As some of you may remember from my previous explanation, I did most of the house renovation work myself, with only a little help from my brother. All I did was get back the fruits of my labor. I had to keep the sheetrock with texture and paint, and the carpet and air conditioning system were the only things I left behind. I disconnected every appliance and moved them away from the wall. The stove, dishwasher, and refrigerator were unplugged, and even the connection harnesses were removed. All hardware is carefully bagged and attached to the appliance. I even took the garbage disposal off and put it in the center of the kitchen, and the sink and faucet were taken apart and removed. I decided to keep the kitchen cabinets. I could have taken them down. In fact, I did take down a couple that the two of us could move, just to show the soon-to-be ex-wife that her beautiful kitchen no longer existed. I also left the kitchen countertop untouched because I used an all-in-one system that can't be removed from the wall without damage. The bathroom was a different story. I emptied and removed the toilet, disassembled the bathroom cabinets, and even removed the faucet handles. We even cleaned the edges of the bathroom cabinets and sinks to remove plaster and sealant. When it was finished, it looked like a bunch of used bathroom fixtures, with only a few exposed pipes and shut-off valves showing on the walls. The tub and shower stayed in place for the same reason as the kitchen countertops. Next, I took the bed and dresser apart as much as I could. The bed was easy to take apart. Mattress, springs, and all the parts were separated and stacked in the hallway. All I can do with the dresser is empty it and put all of my wife's clothes in our bedroom closet, which of course doesn't have those nice louvered doors anymore. Our furniture looked great and was actually very expensive, but like a lot of furniture these days, it was assembled with screws. Most of what we bought was unassembled, and I took apart all the furniture that was originally like that. My wife never helped assemble it. The shelving units were scattered across the floor, and the sideboard that held the wine and all my wife's small furnishings was dismantled, with all the parts carefully bagged. I want to make sure nothing's broken. The last thing removed was the ceiling fans and light fixtures in each room, leaving only the dining room chandelier, but I took all the bulbs off. Oh yeah, I also removed every power switch and outlet in the house. Even though the power was off, we put protective caps on all the wires. I stopped to take a sip of water and looked around the room, realizing that everyone was paying full attention to my story. You're probably wondering what I did with the stuff I removed from the cabinets, shelves, and walls. Well, I didn't want any of those things because they would remind me of the woman who cheated on me. So we put them all on the floor in the master bedroom. I mean, every plate and glass, every figurine, from the front of the closet all the way to the door. There's no way to get from the doorway to the closet without clearing a path through the stuff. Well, I was wrong, because the doors aren't there anymore either, except for the outer doors which I took down, and the outer doors are still there for security purposes. As I said before, I'm an accountant. I kept all the receipts from when we bought into this house. My wife and I paid for it with our joint equity, so I'm going to give her half of those appliances and fixtures, just not the labor I put into it, or sweat equity as I call it. My wife did pretty much nothing but pick out appliances and help plan the renovation. I just want some portable appliances like a coffee maker and microwave or something. It'll give my ex-wife something else to argue about. This elicited a knowing laugh. When her plane landed at the airport, everything in the house that I had installed or assembled was taken apart. I got a call from the court crier who served the divorce papers and just sat back and waited for her to come home. Sarah drove them to the airport, so she drove them back in her van. My brother and I, along with a few neighbors who wanted to see a good show, were waiting. They've been watching me tear down the house all week and can attest to what I've been doing. While we waited, we drank wine from my liquor cabinet and ate steaks from the fridge. I took all the other food to Sophia's mom's house. I told her my refrigerator was broken, but that doesn't explain why I also sent so many canned goods and spices. The poor woman was too confused to ask what happened. I know she'll know soon enough. Sarah just dropped Sophia and Luke off and left. I don't know why Luke came back with her. I went around to the front of the house so the others could watch from the side of the house. Sophia climbs out of the van followed by Luke, both of them pissed off. She waved the envelope she just received and yelled, "Wait," while he angrily questioned me about what lies I'd spread, said he was going to bury me legally, and accused me of tarnishing his reputation. I filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery and named him as one of the parties. It's well known that the courts don't really care about the grounds for divorce, but my accusation of adultery casts a new shadow over the issue, or adds some embarrassment, because it will become part of the public record. Around the same time, Luke's wife Emma arrived with her sister. I knew Sophia's arrival time because I'd been tracking her cell phone, so I called Emma. Emma has already called me to tell me what she found when she returned from her weekend away from home. She asked me if I had been to her house that weekend. I told her truthfully that I had been busy at my own house and had hardly been anywhere except to my brother's to sleep at night. Apparently, she couldn't even get her car into the garage when she got home, and the entire driveway was full of car parts. Not just any car parts, but parts from her husband's beloved 1965 Mustang sports car. It was his pride, and he would show it off to everyone who visited. Originally owned by his father and Luke's first car, the car has significant sentimental value. His father later stored the car, and Luke completely restored the car. I've heard people laugh and say that he loves this Mustang more than his wife and kids. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's close. Of course, Luke was a little disturbed when he saw his wife drive up and immediately started talking about how everything she heard was an outright lie. She didn't tell him what was waiting for him at home. We all stood outside and watched my wife carry her suitcase in. Then there was screaming from inside the house. Sophia ran to the door screaming, "What the fuck did you do to my house?" I know she didn't have time to really check it all over. All she saw were piles of stuff in the living room. I'm surprised she didn't notice the blinds and curtains were gone before she went in. I'm guessing she's in a bit of a mess because she got a subpoena at the airport. Every window was bare because the first thing I did was remove the blinds, take them apart, and fold the curtains. Hey, when I turn off the power, we're stuck with outside light during the day and generator light at night. I walked into the house, followed by my brother and the other people watching. I calmly told my soon-to-be ex-wife what I did. I said I was preparing to split our assets in half. She questioned where her stuff was. I waved my hand and pointed to the floor, then told her that if she was asking about her clothes and personal belongings, they were safely in the bedroom closet. When she went to see it, she wasn't happy. In all the years we've known each other, I've never heard her let out such a shrill scream. Someone called the police, and they came to hear my wife scream and yell about how I had demolished her home. I carefully explained the situation to the first police officer who arrived, and he immediately called his supervisor. I don't know exactly what he said, but in less than a minute, at least 3 more police cars came. I called my lawyer as soon as I knew Sophia was coming home, and he finally arrived, apologizing that he thought it best to change his clothes before coming back. Sophia started ranting about where she was going to stay tonight and demanding that the police arrest me. My attorney vetoed this last idea, telling the police that I had done nothing illegal, no crime had been committed, and that this was a matter for the civil courts. Luke asks his wife to take him home, but Emma refuses, then frowns and asks why he's not looking at his phone. She texted him a couple hours ago. He still doesn't read it, thinking all she's posting is about him being accused of cheating. At this point, I'm trying to focus on 3 or 4 conversations at once. When Sophia asked me what I did to her car, I did answer. She and Luke decided she would drive him because his wife said she wouldn't let his cheating ass in her car. I was honest enough to tell Sophia that her car was right where she left it, in the garage. She rushed inside and stomped back out less than 2 minutes later, complaining that the garage door wouldn't open. I said I wasn't surprised because the power was cut off and I had removed the garage door opener. Luke hears her and tells her that she can open the door by pulling the emergency release. She didn't know what it was, so he went in with her. When they returned, he questioned where the handle for the emergency release was. I shrugged and said that it was marked somewhere, like everything else that had been removed. The police have been taking notes and questioning everyone about the situation. Then Emma breaks her heavy news that she hasn't called the police yet, but she has problems at home too. She showed her cell phone to the officer who seemed to be in charge. I watched as his expression became one of complete disbelief. He looked at me and I told him that Emma had shown me the pictures, but that I had been at my own house all weekend and had multiple witnesses to prove it. With Sophia unable to get out of her car and Emma refusing to take Luke home, they have to call Sarah back. She came back looking a mess and had been crying. Her husband, Michael, was waiting for her outside the house, stuffing all her clothes into a garbage bag. He helped her load the bags into the van and told her not to come back until she had seen her lawyer. He had told me about his plans the day before. So Sophia and Luke put the suitcases in Sarah's van. Emma tells him again that he should look at his cell phone. He finally looked, then let out a shout that almost matched Sophia's scream. He yells for Sarah to hurry up and take him home. When Emma first called me to tell me what she had found out, I gave her a piece of advice that she has acted upon. Her brother-in-law stayed at her house. The police did what they could at my house, and we all gave our statements, so my brother and I followed the others to Luke's house. A TV news station van had pulled up in front of his house. The reporter is interviewing Emma's brother-in-law, Kent, about what they found when they brought Emma home. I later found out that the photographer had taken a full video of the entire area. Kent recounted that they could not drive behind the house and park in the garage because the garage door and most of the driveway were blocked by car parts. The garage is at the end of the house, and that area is completely invisible from the street. No one stopped me from following them to the front of the room. That scene was spectacular. I'm sure most of you assembled model cars as kids. Well, what I see is just like what you see when you open the model box, only without the plastic strip holding the small parts in the center. In the center of the driveway is the car's chassis. On either side are the doors. In the back of the driveway is the trunk lid, and in the front is the hood. I'm a little surprised they didn't take the fenders off as well, and the windshield was left untouched, but practically every other part was removed. The engine was placed in front of the chassis. The radiator, fan, water pump, starter, generator, carburetor, and all the major components were removed, and all the belts and hoses were placed to one side in neat rows. The transmission and the entire drivetrain are placed in the back of the car. The wheels and brake assembly were removed. Even the seat was removed and set aside. That's pretty impressive. I've never seen a car that was almost completely disassembled. Everything was laid out very neatly, although that didn't matter at all. Luke breaks down and starts wailing, even crying. He falls to his knees and screams that Sally is ruined. I asked Emma who Sally was. The TV reporter was standing right next to it, and the police were walking around the car, checking out the scene. I fell to the floor laughing when Emma explained that Luke had named his car Sally, Mustang Sally, like the song. I know you've all heard this part. Once the reporter aired her story, the story was televised by TV networks and then went viral on social media. They used the song Sally the Mustang as the soundtrack. None of us cuckolded spouses are in hiding, and we made sure that all 3 cheaters were named. Luke accused each of us of vandalizing his car, but we all had hard evidence. Sarah's husband, Michael, worked at the dealership all day Saturday and was with the kids that night and all day Sunday. He did have expertise in dismantling cars and possibly resources, but investigators were unable to connect him to anyone who might have been responsible. No fingerprints could be found on any of the parts except Luke's, and the police even examined the nuts that had been carefully stacked. Emma spent the weekend with her sister and brother-in-law, and even her children testified. She loudly proclaimed that she hadn't even thought about doing anything to that car, but if she did, she'd use a hammer, and she was thinking about smashing the rest of the parts with it. Even the police laughed. Of course, since the car was so carefully disassembled and the parts were undamaged, I became the #1 suspect. But I also have an alibi. First of all, I'm not a mechanic. I know about home repairs and renovations, but I don't know how cars are put together. I don't have any tools except a couple screwdrivers and wrenches. And I'm busy tearing down my house while the neighbors watch with interest. The whole thing turns into a circus at Luke's house. Sophia is there because she has no transportation other than Sarah, who was kicked out of the house by her husband. My father-in-law arrived after receiving Sophia's call and watched in disbelief as the farce unfolded. The next day, a reporter called to follow up on the story. She heard about what I did to my house and wanted to add that angle to her story. I gave her a flash drive, one of 20 I had prepared, which documented how I systematically dismantled my house. She compressed 5 hours of video into a 2-minute TV clip. These flash discs have since helped me a lot. I send them out like candy on Halloween. Of course, since I only have 20 flash discs, I also included evidence of cheating by these 3 culprits. Luke got a restraining order prohibiting me from publicizing anything about his affair, but by the time the order was issued, almost all the flash drives had already been sent out. When some of the evidence, including videos of them discussing their infidelity and some of the make-out scenes circulated on the internet, I could no longer control it. Even my father-in-law got a flash drive when he asked me if I was overreacting to perceived events. Luke was totally humiliated to be seen switching places between his 2 female companions, burying his face between Sophia's legs as he used June's toys in the most humiliating image ever to be cut out of a TV clip, only to appear online. The fact that these 3 were photographed is often mentioned. As of today, my status is still up in the air. I intend to push for the divorce proceedings to be finalized as soon as possible, but Sophia wants to stay married for the sake of the children. The paternity test showed, a test initially opposed by my wife, that I was not the father of the fetus in her womb. I paid some extra money for expediting, but since the baby isn't mine, I'll get some money back from the joint estate. Sophia wanted to discuss the matter privately and wait until the baby was born to take the test, but I had made it so public that she had no choice but to take the test, despite the advice of her lawyer. I don't know what she's going to do, or if Luke is going to stand up for himself. Honestly, I don't even know if he's the father. It's none of my business. My wife got a lawyer and claimed that I destroyed my house. My attorney, of course, claimed that I just recovered the fruits of my labor, that no components were damaged, and that everything could be resold. The last I knew, the investigation into who dismantled Luke's Mustang came up empty. The current theory is that this must have been the work of a team of experienced mechanics, and that someone would need to have the expertise to remove the major components without leaving a mess. The oil, transmission fluid, coolant, and even brake fluid were drained, and no parts were damaged in the disassembly. Even Sarah's husband, Michael, admitted to investigators what kind of technology it would take to do that. Michael told me privately that he would love to hire these guys because they do a fast and professional job. He said that while he appreciated the work, he had not been involved in dismantling the Mustang and asked if I had. I honestly told him I didn't. Luke paid good money to have the parts collected and stored. Emma tells him he has 2 days to get the junk, as she calls it, out of her driveway so she can get into the garage, or she'll hire some neighborhood kids to move it all under the carport where Luke used to park. He knew she was true to her word. And before you think I have the upper hand in this, let me say that I paid the price too. The very next day after Sophia came home, I was immediately fired. I know my boss is a good friend of Luke's, and Luke will refer clients to him, and in turn he will recommend Luke when needed. In fact, it was my boss who initially suggested Sophia work for Luke. When I was told I was being fired, I leaned over my boss's desk and asked him point blank if he had been involved in any intimate games, and more specifically if he had had a relationship with my wife. He denied everything, but that didn't stop me from going to talk to his wife, implying that I suspected he might be involved. My ex-boss claimed I was poaching his clients, but when I proved that many of the clients I brought to the company, that claim went out the window. Others said they didn't trust him anymore after he fired me. I agreed to handle the accounts for those who followed me for 2 months for free while working for minimum wage at my brother's place. Sophia's attorney claims that I intentionally avoided having substantial income. I said I was just helping a friend while thinking about my future career. I opened my small, part-time, free accounting practice in an unused office in my brother's building. If any of you need an accountant, please let me know. There were some cheers from the audience. I feel a little better about my situation, but I have to admit that I lost a wife, a home, and all of my dreams, and they can't be undone. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.